Dallas Mayor Eric Johnson, thank you so much. Welcome back to Eye on Politics.
Of course, good to be with you, Jack.
Good to see you. So we're speaking on Thursday, one day before City Manager Kimberly Beiser Tolbert is scheduled to release the budget for next year.
That's
We're
right.
told obviously it's going to be balanced. But before I even get to that, I want to talk about this budget year. The last I heard, at least that what was reported, is that there was a $30 million shortfall for this year. City employees were placed on furlough. What is the latest that you've heard as far as the status of this year's budget?
So, a budget is basically a projection in many ways of what you think is going to happen. And so what I think people need to understand is that when we write a budget, we're always in certain cases predicting what sales tax revenue is going to look like and other expenses are going to look like. And in the current fiscal year, to date, we're ahead of where we were this time last year, but we were not where we had predicted we would be, which is what this shortfall really is. It's attributable mostly to shortfall in sales tax. Sales tax has not come into where we thought it would be up to this point, and with more expenses associated with police and fire pay and overtime than we thought, and also frankly, medical costs associated with health care coverage, prescription drug coverage, and other coverage. So some of the predictions were off. It's not the case that it's at all a statement of the health of the city. It's more of a we miscalculated where we thought we would be based on things you look at in the economy. So that is being addressed the current fiscal year through the things that you referred to that the city manager has the discretion to do. Furloughs are one of the things that she's chosen to do, and she's also implemented a non-essential travel ban. She's implemented just some various cost-cutting measures with hiring freeze and things like that. The furlough is expected to save about $5 million, and she's got some other things in there that hopefully shrink that deficit. So that's really what it's attributed to.
Is it still $30 million shortfall for this year? And regardless of what it is, how does the council rectify that at the end of the budget year?
Well, there are contingencies built into the budget and things, but the idea is between now and the end of the year, we don't know exactly where sales tax is going to end up. There could be a World Cup boost to that type of thing, so we'll see with that. But the furlough, we've had one furlough day, there's 2 more. And we'll see what the other savings measures that she's implemented create. But that has to eventually be shrunk to zero, because at some point the money that we've actually collected is what we've collected. And so we'll just have to stop doing certain things that we had budgeted to do if we don't get there. And of course, again, contingency exists as well for this. So the city manager is really the person who is in the first case going to make those decisions. But that's basically the situation.
So let's talk about next year's budget. What we heard, $51 million projected shortfall. Obviously, the city manager is going to propose a balanced budget because that's the law. But the question is, how does she get there? You've made some suggestions. So talk to me about your suggestions to her.
Well, we'll see what she recommends, but I have a lot of confidence that this city manager really is aligned with my vision for the city in terms of making public safety the #1 priority in the city and continuing to honor it as the #1 priority in the city. I think the budget will reflect that. I hope it reflects that. And if it doesn't reflect that in the first instance, of course, the city council has the ultimate say in what the budget has in it when we adopt it. So the city manager proposes, the city council tinkers with, and then we ultimately pass a budget at the end of this process that becomes the budget and becomes the law, essentially. The budget's actually an ordinance. I'm hoping public safety in the first instance is clearly the top priority of the city, and if it's not, we need to make sure it is by the end. And I also want to make sure that we prioritize continuing down the path that we've been down every year since I've been mayor. We've reduced the tax rate in this city, and that's not just for bragging rights to say it. It's because it helps keep us competitive with our neighbors and with other major cities that are competing for businesses and people. So we need to continue down that path of tax reduction, but competitive means there's not some number I have in my head, just sort of an arbitrary number. It means relative to what other cities are doing, and other cities are facing tough times too. If other cities are raising their tax rates, holding ours steady would be a win. A minor reduction would be a win, obviously. A significant reduction would be great, but we need to see what the reality is and what other people are doing, and try to remain competitive with our competitor cities.
So you don't have a set number that you want to see as far as the drop in the property tax rate?
I would like to see as much tax relief as possible while honoring public safety as our top priority. And I think I've recommended in my memo to the city manager ways to try to get there.
Now, with regards to public safety, there's a meet and confer negotiations going on with the police and fire associations and the city. And from what I've read, the associations are not happy because they haven't gotten any concrete response from the city. So where are you on all this?
I'm confident that we'll get there. We always do. And I think the associations have a job to do, and I respect them very much. I've been supported by them my entire career here for a reason. I think they know my heart is with public safety and with our first responders, and we are going to honor our commitments to them. That's what makes this situation with city finances challenging, because public safety is just such a large part of our budget, and honestly, it's going to become even larger over time. The obligations that we have to them to make their pay always competitive with the region, the obligations we have as part of our pension obligations are always going to be things that put pressure on the general fund unless we come up with other ways to address that, which is part of what this conversation around a public safety bond is about. It's to try to relieve some pressure on the general fund and give us some flexibility in how we deal with some of these things. But the reality is I think they understand that public safety is my top priority. It's the top priority of the city. It's the top priority of the city council, but we've got to come to some understanding on what other things the city has to do that are considered essential services that we have to do to be a thriving, vibrant city, and then everything else that's not that is going to have to yield, I think, in this budget process. But we'll get a deal done with our police and fire. We always do.
Yeah, right-sizing city operations is something that you've mentioned before and again this year.
Yeah.
So what exactly are you talking about? Because there was a report, I believe in the Dallas Morning News, that said over a certain period of time, the city has hired 750 additional people. And so are we talking, do you think that there need to be layoffs, people lose their jobs because the city's just too big, government-wise?
Well, thank you, Jack, for at least acknowledging that this is not a new conversation, right? At least not for me. I want people to understand that since I walked in the door here, irrespective of anything else, political ideology, party affiliation, anything else, I walked in the door here saying we need to be more efficient, we need to right-size government, we need to prioritize our taxpayers, and I'm still that guy, and I'm never going to change.
You said defund the bureaucracy.
That's right. I said defund the bureaucracy back before it was cool, and now I think a lot of other people now are starting to say and understand that this is not a slogan. It's going to have to become a way of life. So here's what I am saying, Jack, just to put a fine point on it. We are going to have to really come to grips with the fact, I believe it's a fact, that we have a definition of essential services that may be too broad. We need to come up with a better understanding of what is truly a core city function, and everything that is not a core city function, we have to figure out a way to get out of and to put in the hands of people who can handle it better, whether that's another governmental entity or it's the nonprofit sector. So, people ask, well, what's an example of that? I mean, and this is a tough conversation for politicians, I understand, because a lot of these things are in our budget now because they were politically popular at some point to someone, and to discontinue something that's popular can be tough. But I don't think we should be operating a skating rink. Southern Skates is an example, just an easy example for people to wrap their heads around, because there's just a bunch of things scattered throughout a $5 billion plus budget that over the years we've accumulated things like that where it's a nice thing to do. but it's not something that's essential that your city provide. We have to get really serious about what those things are and stop doing them. It's the only way forward. So we have to, when I say right-size city government, I mean getting out of all of those places, like coming to an agreement on what those things are and getting out of all of those. And then I think we have to be very, very much focused on efficiency going forward. Data center debate aside, we've got to get comfortable with the idea that AI is going to be something that is going to benefit the taxpayers of Dallas in the long run. We're going to have to become more efficient with everything we do around here, and AI is going to be able to help us with that. Procurement is a great example of an area where at some point, I'm just going to make up a number, you may be able to reduce by 50% or more the number of human beings and salary and benefits you have to associate with procurement. That may be an area that AI can very easily help make us more efficient in and reduce the need for additional headcount. So yes, ultimately, Jack, I do see city government getting smaller. And I mean in a personnel sense, yes.
And you're saying that AI is going to contribute to that?
It already is, and it's going to have to contribute even more.
And what do you mean as far as like numbers? Like city manager and her budget people are working on this now, incorporating AI to reduce the need for employees?
Yeah, I think they are already looking at areas that are heavily right now dominated by data analysis. Things where, to issue a permit or to, in the case of procurement, to evaluate who we're going to do business with, we ask for volumes and volumes of information. And we've got human beings just pouring over volumes of information that could be fed to an AI supported computer to help us analyze a lot faster and frankly make fewer mistakes and be more efficient about it. You just need the human beings to check the work. That's the kind of thing that we're going to have to get even more serious about. We're already doing it in certain areas. You could talk to the city manager's office about where they are and where they aren't doing that. But I have a feeling that that is an area that we will not be able to avoid looking into if we want to actually reduce the tax burden on our residents and make this government right-sized.
What about, no offense to anybody in your office or at city council members' offices, what about cuts to all of your offices? Is that something that you have looked at, other city council members are looking at? Are you aware of?
The way I look at cuts is this. I don't believe in across-the-board cuts for the sake of cutting, but I do believe in cutting where things are not essential, where people are not. If you can do the same work with fewer people than in government, then you should. Just as a principle, you should. But if you can't, you can't. And so, again, some areas are more amenable to that than others. So things like, AI can't provide security for the mayor. So, the size of the mayor's security detail, that's a public safety decision that should be made by a police chief in accordance with best practices, not an arbitrary cut. And obviously AI can't make us more efficient in how we provide physical security to people. Analyzing policy and stuff like that may be able to be assisted somewhat by AI, but you'll always need to have a certain number of folks doing more qualitative work that you get on the policy side.
But you've looked at it for your office.
Of course. I mean, I think all of us are looking at in my office, and I think I can speak on behalf of the council and say we're all at this point of the understanding that we are not going to be able to go on with business as usual going forward, given the slowdown in growth in sales tax revenue, but also, frankly, we're still growing, Jack, in terms of our property values, but not as fast. The growth has slowed down, but it's still growth. It's still healthy growth. 5% growth year over year in our property values is good, but it's slower than the past year since I've been mayor. So we need to be aware of all those things. I think the council is, and I think we're going to have to have an honest conversation about how we can help.
Last question, and that is the state legislature, Governor Abbott has said it, that he is going to ask the legislature in next legislative session to clamp down on local government's ability to just, keep the revenues up, which leads to higher property taxes. And do you think that the message, is that getting out in City Hall that the governor, Republican leaders want to clamp down on this?
This is an interesting point for me, Jack, because pits two, I won't say competing, but not necessarily perfectly aligned principles that I hold dear. I do believe in local control, and I do like the idea of local governments being able to determine their own fate and not have everything dictated to local governments by Austin. The same way when I was in Austin, we felt that way about Washington. Like, no one really likes having a level of government looking over their shoulder, another level of government looking over their shoulder, telling them what to do. You don't mind your constituents telling you what to do, but for other elected officials at a different level telling you as a duly elected official what to do, you don't love that. So as a local government person, I don't love Austin telling us what to do the same way I didn't love Washington telling us what to do when I was a state legislator. That's one principle, but it kind of runs in conflict with another principle I have, which is small government and efficient government and not overburdening your taxpayers. And at some point, if the local government won't make these tough choices, we leave ourselves open to this type of interference. I'll call it interference. And so I'm stuck here a little bit because the truth of the matter is this is the conversation I'm saying that we need to have more in earnest at the local level. Well, we should have had it a long time ago. Like, we really should have been slowing down the growth of government all this time. Like, it's grown too much and it's gotten into too many things. And so our tax burden is what it is, not, I'll say it this way. I think what Austin understands, when they look at these numbers, is that city governments don't have a revenue problem. We don't have a revenue problem. Like I said, we've added $30 billion to our city's tax base since I took office, $30 billion. Year over year, we've had nothing but growth year over year, every year. Like I said, this last year was 5% growth, and that was a slower year. And of that growth, on average, a third of it comes from new construction. I'll put that in another sense. Of all this incredible year over year growth, on average, at least a third of it is coming from brand new construction, not just revaluing what you had before. Although revaluation is also growth. I mean, it means the stuff that you have is more valuable. People value the city of Dallas more than they did the year before, but we're building more things here. So I think state government understands you've got plenty of money, but you're choosing to spend it all. You're choosing to go out and tax to the limit that you can, as opposed to thinking about how you can return that value to your residents. And they want us to think differently about that. And I don't think they're wrong about that. I just wish we were doing it on our own.
We will leave it there.
Yeah.
Dallas Mayor Eric Johnson, thank you so much.
Thank you.
We appreciate it.
Of course.